And the reason is because Corey Stewart isn't a politician. Corey Stewart is a public servant, and he listens to his constituents, and he's about solving problems, not having perpetual problems to pretend that you're solving, which a lot of politicians do. What I think is extremely notable is that back in 2007, when it was not particularly popular, we've been hearing pushback today, Corey Stewart was a lone voice about deporting criminal illegal aliens. And he made that a top priority in Prince William County. And as a result, since 2007, they deported 7,500 criminal illegal aliens from Prince William County, which, as a result, they've seen a significant reduction in crime, which is very important to the quality of life. Additionally, I want to say one of the other key reasons that I support Corey Stewart is he recognizes that you do not grow the economy by growing the government. He has a strong platform. He's running to reduce taxes. He did it in Prince William County, had a significant tax reduction, came into office when the economy crashed, as opposed to trying to fill that gap by passing the bill to the taxpayers. He reduced spending in county government. And as a result, they achieved AAA bond rating status, rare air, and also have a top record for their business, how business friendly they are there. So Corey Stewart will bring that to Virginia. He stands up for our heritage. He's standing up for our coal industry, and he's going to put our anemic economic stature that Virginia is now ranked 13 as far as being business friendly in the country, and get us back up where we belong to #1. So please welcome the next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Corey Stewart.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to be here today, and Mary, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Paula, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me down here, and it's great to be down here in the Williamsburg area. I love this area. My wife and I both do. She apologizes that she couldn't be here today. We've got 2 boys, and they still don't drive. They're 17 and 15. Now, when I was a kid, that was the first thing you do. If you wanted to be a cool kid, you'd learn how to drive. But now there's something wrong with these teenagers today. They don't want to drive. They don't want to do anything except play video games, I think. But they go to a Catholic high school up there, and anyway, the short of it is that after this, we're going down to South Boston, which is very close to the North Carolina border, and then headed back up tonight. And then Maria and I are coming down to Liberty tomorrow for the first big televised debate on the Republican side, anyway, at Liberty University. And that's going to be, that'll be a lot of fun. We got a lot planned for that event. So a little bit about me. I don't talk a lot about my personal background that much, but I'm originally, I shouldn't say this in this crowd, but I have to say it. I was born in Minnesota. My dad was a longshoreman on the Great Lakes. Yeah, yes, unfortunately. But Minnesota's moving, by the way. It's moving right. It's moving in the right direction anyway. And eventually it's going to vote Republican, I swear. I went to Japan. I went to Georgetown University. It was the first one in my family to go to college or university. I graduated from there, but when I was there, I was telling Bonnie, I was a foreign exchange student in Poland in 1990. It was just after the wall fell, and it was such a great experience. The most pro-American people on the planet are the Poles. They love America. They love Americans. They have this story there. One of the things that they're very conservative to this day, because they were under the yoke of a socialist government, a communist government. And they said, the communists came to Poland and they told us that we were all going to be equal. And they were right. equally poor. They devastated the economy, and that's why all of Eastern Europe eventually was able to, shake off, these socialist governments. But there was a story about you'd have to wait in line for a long time for anything, everything in Poland. You had to wait for a long, long time. And so this, for an automobile, it was like 5 or 10 years. You had to wait to get an automobile. So a couple, they go to this automobile store and the auto dealer, and they said, "Oh, we'd like to order this automobile." And so they sign up, and the dealer says, "Well, you can pick it up in 10 years on, April 18th or whatever," and so the purchaser, he says, "Well, morning or evening?" And the dealer says, "Well, what difference does it make? It's 10 years from now." And he goes, "Well, because the electrician's coming in the morning." So, anyway, but we have our own share of socialists here. And by the way, after that, I went to Japan. I was traveling around a lot. I was teaching English in Japan, and while I was there, I met my wife, Maria. She was traveling around, and I was teaching, and so we met there in Japan. That was in 1992, and then we went back home, and we got married in Minnesota, and I graduated from law school there. And then I realized I really liked it out here. When I was at Georgetown, I said, I really loved Virginia, so I found my first legal job in Virginia, or actually in D.C. In 1998, and that's when we moved to Virginia. And we've got 2 boys, they're 15 and 17. And I think they're conservatives. I think they are, especially my oldest one. He's more conservative than I am. He's very, very conservative. But anyway, we have our own share of liberals here, our own share of socialists in Virginia, and it's getting worse and worse. As Mary said, I govern. I'm directly elected as the at-large chairman of Prince William County. So Fairfax, Prince William, Loudoun counties have a direct election for the chairman of the board. I'm directly elected by the whole county every 4 years. There was a special election in 2006, which I won. It was a very bad year for Republicans. That was the year that George Allen was defeated. And then in 2007, I was reelected, and then again in 2011, and then just in 2015 reelected by increasing margins. In fact, I'm the only Republican who's been able to win Prince William County, the only one. The last person besides myself to win Prince William County at large was Bob McDonnell. It's a very tough county. It's a majority minority. It's about 54% minority, about 20%. 22% African American, another 20% Hispanic, and then about somewhere around 10 to 15% Asian, which is the fastest growing portion of our population. I've governed it, and I have reduced spending. One of the first things that we had to do when I took office is that the economy, the housing market collapsed. It went down by 60%. Values went down by 60%. And even some of the liberals are trying to blame me for the collapse in the housing market. They see Corey Stewart gets elected and the housing market collapses. But even the Washington Post said that, well, that was nonsense. But we had to make a tough decision. And when you're governing a locality, if you're governing anything this size, you've got to make hard decisions. You can't just pass it off onto somebody else or go and cast a vote and hope that it's going to work itself out. It doesn't work that way. So we could have, when values dropped that much, we could have just increased the rate to offset that drop in values. But we didn't. And a lot of other localities were doing that. We had to cut $185 million from our base budget in a single year. In a single year, and we did it. We did it. It was not easy. There were a lot of people who were not very happy, but we did it. And we rebuilt our budget over and around the 3 core priorities of government: education, transportation, public safety. And that's what we've got to do in Virginia. That is exactly what we have to do in Virginia. Now, there's another plan out there by my competitor, Ed Gillespie, and he says he's going to cut tax bills he's going to cut the tax rate in Virginia by 10%. But his tax plan, because he's never governed anything, is completely dependent upon unanticipated new revenues that nobody's claimed so far. Well, we haven't had that situation where we've had a big surplus of revenues in 10 years in Virginia. It's hoping for something, it's a plan based on hope. Well, you can't have a plan based on hope if you expect that plan to come to fruition. You've got to make the hard decisions. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to, as we did in Prince William, we're going to hold the department heads responsible for developing, and we're going to push those decisions into how to cut waste and how to make the state government more efficient. This has not been done in Virginia. They've never done zero-based budgeting. And we're going to cut each and every department by 10%. Some departments more, some less. We're not going to be cutting state police, for example. And that is how we're going to find those savings. And we're going to reduce Virginia's top marginal income tax rate from its current rate of 5.75% down to 4.75%. And we're going to do that in a year. Now, the reason this is important is this. My county is #1 in job growth in Virginia, #3 in the United States. And the way we did it was by reducing the size of government, getting off the back of governments, of businesses. And you can only do that by cutting spending. And so, as we do that, in North Carolina, by the way, anybody here from North Carolina or spent a lot of time down there, I'll tell you something. Nancy has. All right. So their top marginal income tax rate in 2010 was 7.75%. Today, as of January 1st, North Carolina's top marginal income tax rate is 5.49%. That is a huge cut in their income tax. Now, what that has resulted in is a massive influx in jobs into North Carolina. And a lot of those jobs are coming from Virginia and into North Carolina because we've been stuck at 5.75% for so long, and businesses have been overtaxed and they're going down there. That is why we have to cut the income tax. And when I'm governor, it's going to be job one is to bring down the income tax, and keep those jobs and bring those jobs back to Virginia. There are a lot of issues in the campaign. I want to talk to you about a couple that are very important to me, and I'll tell you why they're important. Illegal immigration is, look, the #1 job that I have as governor, that I will have as governor, the #1 job that I have governing Prince William County, the #1 job of every elected official is to protect the lives and the safety and the rights of all of you. That's the most important thing. And in Prince William County, there was a series of heinous murders and other horrible crimes committed by illegal aliens. And the community came up to me and said, look, what are we going to do about this? And at first, like a lot of other local officials, I thought, well, there probably isn't a whole lot we can do. But we put into place a very simple policy, and it's this. If somebody is arrested for a crime, they've committed a crime, burglary, larceny, arson, whatever it is, we check their immigration status. We use a database called the 287G database with the federal government. And if they're here illegally, they serve their sentence for the underlying crime, and after they've done that, we begin the deportation processing of their deportation. We hand them over to the federal government, and they're deported. So, we're not rounding people up, we're not going to job sites, we're not doing any of that. This is simply working and cooperating with federal authorities to make sure that we're targeting the bad guys and removing them. And some people say, well, what if it's not a very serious crime? And my answer is twofold. One, first, you gotta remember, they're here illegally first anyway. Right? The second, and this is the most important point, criminals usually just don't get out of bed one day and decide to be criminals. Usually it doesn't happen. They usually graduate in the severity of their crime. So if you allow somebody to get off, get scot-free, and they're likely to commit another crime, and that is what happened, by the way. I don't know how many of you heard about this, and this is, I apologize because it's kind of hard to listen to. But a Lynchburg boy, 17 years old, 11th grader, a Virginia boy, was abducted. He was mutilated. They cut off his hands and his feet.
Oh my God.
Alive. And then they killed him. And that happened to a Lynchburg boy, and his body was dumped in Bedford. Now this is MS-13. This is an illegal alien gang, which I've been fighting for the past 10 years in Prince William County. When we did this policy, we did so partly because 80% of the members of MS-13 are illegal aliens. And when you crack down on illegal immigration, you're also removing members of MS-13 and making us all more safe. When we did this, about 25,000 people left the county.
Amen.
25,000, because they knew that they had one of two choices. One, they had to keep their noses very, very clean. Or two, they could get out of our county, and that's what they did. And a lot of them moved out. And a lot of the crimes that are being committed by MS-13 in Northern Virginia today, they're not in Prince William County anymore. They were 10 years ago, but now they're in Fairfax. Fairfax welcomed illegal immigrants. It was the craziest thing. Craziest thing. And then a lot of them went up to Montgomery County, Maryland. The crime rates went up in those communities and went down in Prince William County. When we put that policy in place, our violent crime rate went down by 48.7% in 3 years. So it's a tough thing to talk about, and I know a lot of people say, why are you so mean? Why are you so mean about this? Because I think about the victims. I'm thinking about the victims. And when I'm governor, we are going to put this policy in place across the entire state. There will be no respite for criminal illegal aliens in Virginia. They're going to get out of our state, they're going to go someplace else, and we are all going to be the better for it. So, finally, I want to talk about an issue that I didn't expect it to be an issue when I first started this campaign, but it's become one, and it's become a very important one. So, about a month and a half ago, the city of Charlottesville voted to take down a statue of Robert E. Lee that has been there since 1924. 1924. The statue of Robert E. Lee.
It's a beautiful statue.
It's a beautiful statue. Robert E. Lee is a hero.
Amen.
He's a hero. He's not just a Virginia hero, he's an American hero. He was the last person who wanted to secede from the Union. He was against it. But when Abraham Lincoln asked him to lead Union troops, he said, look, I cannot draw a sword against my native Virginia. I cannot do it. This is where my family's from. I'm not going to do it. So, but after the war was over, Lee could have, like some others did, he could have sat on the sidelines embittered. He could have led a guerrilla movement. Some did. But he didn't. He led reconciliation. And when he became the president of Washington College, now Washington and Lee University, he expelled white students who attacked black citizens. Because of Robert E. Lee, he was so revered in the South, and Lincoln knew this, by the way. He was so revered in the South that they knew that how Lee went, others would follow. And because Lee was for reconciliation, our country healed generations before it otherwise would have, and reconciled. So he needs to be revered, and that's why his statue is there. And if you think for a minute that the left is done when they remove the statue of Robert E. Lee, they're not done. They've already said next in Charlottesville they're coming after Thomas Jefferson. If this happens, folks, It doesn't stop with Charlottesville. It goes to Richmond, it goes to Petersburg, it comes to Williamsburg. And pretty soon, we've lost everything. Because when you think about it, when you travel around this country or around the world, and somebody asks you where you're from, you say, I'm from Virginia. You're proud of it. We're proud of this state. We're proud. Why? Because we're proud of its history. This is the state of Washington and Jefferson and Madison and Monroe. And it's also the state of Robert E. Lee and Jeb Stewart and Stonewall Jackson. We have a tremendous heritage here. That is our heritage. It's our identity. And if the heritage goes, our identity does as well. And that is why, when I'm governor of this state, over my dead body, will we remove any statue to any Virginia hero, whether they're in Charlottesville or Williamsburg, whether they fought in the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, but we are going to protect our heritage here in Virginia. So I'm going to wrap it up. I just want to thank you all, and I'll be happy to answer